All right.
Good morning, Your Honor. So I don't understand why I'm in court first, because they sent me a docket for November rent. I do not owe November rent. My rents are current. However, they told me on the 14th of January, I paid my rent, including the first late fee. I told them that I'm okay paying the first late fee. So I paid the first late fee because I'm a PhD candidate and my funds come internationally. So due to the holidays, I was able to get my fund late. So I paid the rent on the 14th of January, including
right away. This case starts
I don't see a date stamp
over the
on here as
amount
far as
owed,
the date it was
and that's
received,
never
but
a
I
good
see the date it was
sign in
issued
court.
by the court was on
What
the
began as a
22nd.
relatively small balance
And
has
so
already grown from
these court costs were properly incurred. The payment was due by the 13th. It didn't happen. It was referred to us for filing, and my client did incur these costs to
default judgment.
recover the monies that it was
the big
owed.
question.
So,
Is this just a
can I ask a question,
misunderstanding
please?
over payment timing?
Yeah.
Or did the court process
so
move
my question
forward
is,
before
why
the
was I
tenant had a
filed
fair
for the
chance to
20th of
fix the
November
issue?
if you guys were not trying
Stick
to
around,
represent
because
in
this
the court?
courtroom debate quickly turns into a complex
Because here
argument
it says,
about deadlines,
it says
filings,
that I'm
and whether the
current
landlord's
up
legal
until
costs were justified.
31st late fee. So on the 15th, the payment was made on the 14th before the 15th. So on the 26th, I received a call from James of Spice Tree. He told me I have a $282 balance on my account. And I requested for the breakdown of this amount. And he told me that it's a $182 court fee and a $10 late fee. So I asked, like, okay, can you guys give me a one-time waiver for this late fee? The request was declined, right? So I requested for the official court receipt for the $182 because I paid on the 14th. So he told me, oh, we filed the case. I asked him, when did you file the case? He told me they filed the case on the 6th of January. And I said, okay. He sent me the ledger. I sent the ledger back to my funders and said, this is what happened. Because you guys disbursed for me late, I have a pending amount, so you guys need to send me $282. So they declined. They said the ledger wasn't allowed, that they need an official court docket. So I came to the court to ask for these details. They told me this case was filed on the 20th. I paid my rent on the 14th. I went back to my rental contract. There is no way on my rental contract that says that they are going to charge me $182 on the 14th of January, even though I paid my rent on the 14th of January. And ever since then, even though this case has been in court, I've been getting harassing messages, and I've also been getting tags on my door that I'm late on rent, even though I'm current on rent. All I requested for, without the additional late fee and all the multiple late fee that they have been adding onto it, is that give me a receipt of the court fee that you paid to the court on the 14th of January. Because as per the court, I went to the court clerk. This case was filed on the 20th of January.
Your Honor, the demand for possession was issued on January 6th, meaning that payment of the balance due was needed by close of business on the 13th. It was not made by defendants and statements. Our complaint is dated January 14th and would have been processed by our office and sent for filing with the court on that date. I understand the court may not have received it and processed it until I don't know what date the court marked it as.
Now,
of November.
this is where
That's what it
things get
says
interesting.
in the initial
The
filing
defendant explains
for the
that
non-payment
she's a
of rent.
PhD candidate whose rent
In this
payments
case?
depend on
Yes.
international funding.
And Your Honor,
meaning
I can
delays
explain
can happen
she's
outside of
referring
You mean
to
the
From
pro
her
rata?
perspective, she already accepted responsibility
Amount on
for
the
paying a late
complaint?
fee and believed
Yeah,
the
so
matter
Your
was
Honor, she's
resolved.
looking at the date
But
under
the legal
5C,
system
rent is
doesn't
paid through
always operate on
11/30/2025.
intentions.
Yeah.
It
And the way
operates
that
on
calculates,
deadlines
Your
and
Honor, is
paperwork.
it
If
looks
the
at the total
landlord
balance
initiated
due, and
the
if it
eviction
exceeds
process
however many
before the
months of
payment
rent,
cleared,
then it
then legally
dates
those
it back
court
because there are
costs can still
additional
be
amounts
charged.
owed over and
So
above
the
just the
real
base
issue
rent
here
of
isn't just about
the
the rent.
$1,500.
It's about
That
timing.
being received, I don't see a date stamp on here as far as the date it was received, but I see the date it was issued by the court was on the 22nd. And so these court costs were properly incurred. The payment was due by the 13th. It didn't happen. It was referred to us for filing, and my client did incur these costs to recover the monies that it was owed. So,
Your Honor, can I ask her a question, please?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, why was I filed for the 20th of November, if you guys were not trying to represent in the court. Because here it says, it says that I'm current up until 30th of November. That's what it says in the initial filing for the non-payment of rent.
In this case?
Yes.
And Your Honor, I can explain she's
You
referring
mean
to
the pro rata amount on the complaint?
Yeah, so Your Honor, she's looking at the date under 5C, rent is paid through 11/30/2025.
Yeah.
And the way that calculates, Your Honor, is it looks at the total balance due, and if it exceeds however many months of rent, then it dates it back because there are additional amounts owed over and above just the base rent of the $1,500. That being utility charges that are charged metered based on usage, trash fees. So those additional charges put the balance due over and above what would have been, in this case, presumably the January balance. And in looking at the ledger, Your Honor, we verify if she was paid, in fact, through December at the time the case was filed, and she was, Your Honor. So my client was not seeking anything over and above that, but at the time the case was filed by our office, she did still owe the January charges, late fee, and then the court costs were incurred by my client.
Your Honor, I also have the ledger here, and as that the 16th of January, my balance stays at $282.42, which is the court fee and the late fee that they charged me on the 16th of January. That's what the ledger says here. So how come if it's on the 16th of January, my balance says $282.42, and you are filing in court that my balance is $1,570. $1,570. I also have the ledger here.
Your Honor, I can look at the ledger and say, yeah, that's what it says on January 16th, but on January 14th, the balance was, in fact, $1,856.40.
I paid my rent on the 14th of January.
Do not yell.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
When they file and sign the complaint, what they alleged to the court at the time of the signing was what was owed on the ledger. You're expecting, in both things that you said, you're expecting the number to somehow change between the time that the plaintiff files it and the time that it gets to the court for filing.
Okay, Your Honor.
The only thing that's required is that the amount or the information that's contained in the complaint is true at the time that it's signed by the attorney's office. And in each of the instances that you're bringing up, it's true.
Your Honor, so if that's the case,
This
Utility
is the moment where the
charges
entire
that
case
are
pivots. The defendant
charged,
insists she paid the
metered
rent
based
on
on
January
usage,
14th,
trash
while the
fees,
landlord
so those
claims the
additional
legal process
charges
started
put the
earlier
balance due
after a
over and
payment
above what would
deadline
have
expired on the
been,
13th.
in this case,
In eviction law,
presumably
that one-day
the
difference can make a huge
January
impact.
balance.
Once a
And
landlord
in
begins
looking
the
at the
legal
ledger,
filing
Your Honor,
process, court
we
fees
verify
and legal
she was
costs
paid, in
often
fact,
become the tenant's
through
responsibility, even if
December
the rent
at the
is
time
paid
the
shortly
case was
afterward.
filed.
But here's
and
the twist.
She was,
The
Your Honor, so my
defendant
client was
isn't
not seeking
necessarily
anything over
arguing
and
the
above that,
amount
but at
itself.
the time the case
She's
was
asking for
filed by
documentation
our office,
proving exactly when the
she
case
did
was
still owe
filed,
the January
because her
charges,
funding
late fee,
organization
and then the court costs
refuses
were
to
incurred by my
reimburse the
client.
cost without it.
Your
So what do
Honor,
you
I
think?
also have the ledger
Is this
here,
a simple paperwork
and as
issue,
at the
or is the system
16th
being
of January,
overly rigid?
if they are alleging that it's on the 1st of January, then the balance, so if they're alleging that they filed it on the 14th of January, then the balance should be $1,074. That's what my account
If they
says.
file it on the 1st of January,
Yeah, if they filed on the 1st of January, like if they filed before then. So because my balance, my closing balance is $150 on the 5th of November, on the 5th of December, right? And on the 1st of January, I have.
what do you want to have happen here?
Okay, so what I requested for is that I just want them to give me the receipt dated on the 14th before I paid, that it was filed on the 14th.
You mean before you pay the court costs?
Before I paid the rent, because I paid the rent on the 14th.
You want the receipt on the 14th?
Yes. Like, because I need to get this money reimbursed back to me if I'm to pay. And they say
Money reimbursed back.
okay, so they're saying that sorry, I'm going to come again, Your Honor. I'm really sorry. So, I paid my rent on the 14th of January. And they are telling me that I paid my rent late on the 14th of January. So I'm going to be charged $182 for the court fee. When the court,
You're being charged a court fee because if those things cross in the mail, they cross in the mail. I mean, quite frankly, and I don't say this to people, but you're trying to argue some timing technicality, which doesn't make any sense to me. Because the cold-hearted reality is, had you paid your rent on the 1st of November, or 1st of January, we wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't even be arguing about it.
yeah, Your Honor, I paid. That's why I paid the late fee. Because I understood the late night.
Right, but you can pay the late fee, but the plaintiff has the right to pursue whatever they can pursue in court and need to protect themselves.
Yes, but according to the contract, they told me that I should pay before the 14th and then the late fee will apply. Your Honor, I paid this from my pocket when I had additional job. But right now, the only fund I have is for my funders. So I do not have additional income to complement this. I'm okay paying all of this. But if my funders tell me we need these papers so that I can get this money from them, that's all of from my fund. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Michigan, and I get my funds from an international organization that is paying my living allowances and my rent.
And Your Honor, if I may, just to touch on one thing, the defendant indicated that they told her to pay before the 14th, which is accurate. If she had paid before the 14th on the 13th, when the demand expired and required payment by, we also wouldn't be here today. The issue is that she paid on the 14th, which is not before the 14th. Your Honor, with respect to this, the judgment that has entered in this case should be sufficient for her to take to her fund and say, the court has ordered me to pay this. This is the funding I need to be reimbursed so I can have the rent cured and my housing housing remain in good standing. I don't know what sort of receipt could otherwise be provided, other than, a judgment that acknowledges what's due and owing in order to satisfy the balance owed to Spice Street.
Because on the judgment, this says I have late rent. So nothing on the judgment says that I'm paying late fee. Because to them, they are saying it's late rent I stated on this judgment. I sent this to them.
Sent to who?
I sent it to the company that funds my research.
Okay, and they won't pay it?
Yeah, they are telling me that they need to see that this was filed on the 14th, because I sent the rental contract to their lawyers, and they're like, okay, you explain to us that if this is late by the 6th day, because the guy called me on the 14th and he told me you need to pay this by card, because if you go pay by money order, it's going to be delayed. So that's on the 14th morning. So on the 14th, I got back from school at around 8 p.m. ish, and I paid it immediately because he said, if I do money order, it's going to spill to the next day, which is going to be 15th. So I went to make sure that I paid it on the 14th because he called me on the 14th in the morning of 14th.
And Your Honor, the complaint is the date of that. It says January 14th is the date that the case was processed for filing. That's the only receipt that can be provided to her as proof that legal action was pursued because the payment wasn't timely made. That, in conjunction with the judgment, should be sufficient for that. I mean, the judgment in and of itself is an order of the court saying it has to be paid.
That was sufficient, but when excuse me, that was sufficient, Your Honor, but when I requested from Spice Street.
Okay, but hold on a second. The issue here doesn't have anything to do with Spice Street.
Yeah, he has everything to do with me.
Pardon?
It has to do with me.
I know. So I'm not sure, Spice Tree, everything has been done properly. The fact that, and I don't know what to tell you, the fact that they won't reimburse that, because I don't know what math they're doing. But it would seem to me that if they reimburse your housing costs, if you got a ledger and sent it to them, that should tell them.
Yeah, because I told them, they said a ledger does not constitute that the case was filed in court. Because I'm having like this back and forth with them also.
I hear you, but I don't know what anyone can do for that. Because you have there's the complaint that was filed. And on the 14th, what's stated on that complaint is that balance. Now, there may have been the crossing of the amounts, but I don't know why they won't pay it. But that doesn't seem to be Spice Tree's problem, quite frankly, as I'm listening to it. And
Yeah,
to be honest with you, not the courts.
I get it, because I think the problem with them is the fact that they are feeling like the papers I submitted is inconsistent with the information Spice Street is giving me. Because Spice Street told me this case was filed on the 6th, right? That was the email they sent to me.
No, the notice you get a demand to pay on the 6th.
I didn't
If you
get it.
look at your paperwork,
Yeah, I did. I got a demand to pay on the 6th. So that was why I
it
sent
expires
that
on
to
the
them.
13th, which is why you need to pay before the 14th. And on the 14th, they proceeded with the balance that was due and owing at the time. So why these people won't do something, I don't know. And I can't, I'm not going to order the plaintiff to do something which is not what the plaintiff.
My
And
balance
with
states
that,
that
the judge makes the final
$292.42,
decision.
which
The
is the
defendant's
court fee
motion to set
and the late
aside the
fee
default
that they
judgment
charged
is
me
denied,
on
meaning the
the
original
15th
ruling
of, on the
stands
16th of
and the
January.
balance must
That's what the
still
ledger
be
says
paid.
there. So how
From the
come
court's
if it's
perspective,
on the 16th
the
of
landlord
January,
followed
my
the
balance
proper
is
legal steps. The
$282.50,
payment deadline passed,
and you are filing in court
filing
that my
process
balance is
began, and the
$1,570.
resulting court costs became part of the debt.
$1,570.
Unfortunately for the tenant,
I also have the ledger
can't
here.
intervene in the dispute
Your Honor, I
between
can look at the
her and
ledger
the
and say,
organization
yeah,
funding her
that's what it says on
research.
January 16th, but
Cases
on
like this
January
show how
14th,
strict legal timelines
the balance
can create costly
was, in fact,
consequences, even when someone tries to
$1,856.40.
I
fix the
paid my
problem
rent on the
shortly
14th
afterward.
of January.
Do not yet.
If you found
sorry,
this
Your
case
Honor.
as fascinating as we did,
When
let
they
us know what you
file and
think in the
sign the
comments.
complaint,
Was this fair or just a
what they
technicality
alleged
that
to
went
the
too
court
far?
at the time of the
And
signing
don't forget to like the
was
video,
what was
share
owed
it with
on
someone
the
who
ledger.
enjoys courtroom drama, and subscribe for more intense courtroom
You're
breakdowns and
expecting
legal analysis.
They did everything correctly.
Okay, so I'm just going to request from them if they can send me like an email that says like, this is the actual amount or something. And like, as part of the
Actual amount of
like
what?
of the $282 and the date they filed, if they can give everything to me.
You got a judgment,
Yeah, I sent the
382.
yeah, I sent the judgment to them, and they still said the same thing.
I don't know what you want me to do. They're
Okay.
not under the jurisdiction of this court. That you got a judgment. The judgment says this is what you owe.
Okay, I would proceed with the payment of the judgment.
Pardon?
I will proceed with the payment of the judgment then. Because they are just giving me a lot of it's a back and forth with them.
Okay, but I can't do anything with it. So you're going to, so you filed a motion to set aside the default. When I look at everything, you haven't stated the basis to do that. The motion to set aside is denied. And the judgment will stand. What I'm going to suggest you do is pay off the judgment and then deal with those folks. But there's nothing, I'm not going to order Spice Tree to do something that they don't need to do. And I can't just order people to do stuff. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
versus Hunter McNiff.
Hot check too.